All right. I'm live. You're live. Will Gibson's live. We don't have
Sir.
a name for this show, and he's joining us. I'll talk about him, man, since he's newly employed, and he comes here. I think he's late. Will, I really do think
I think
Andy
so.
Yanez is late.
Yeah, man.
But
I'm a few seconds late. I was trying to plug in my AirPods so I could join you. Sorry for being a few seconds late.
this is all good, man. But since you're starting a new job soon, can't do that,
Yeah,
man. That first day, man, got to make a first impression. Keep it real. All
for
right,
sure.
everybody. I'm Kris Gardner of the Houston Roundball Review. Joining me tonight, this evening on June 4th, this inaugural NBA playoff talk is Willy Gibson, journalist Willy Gibson. He's sporting the Ohio State, what's that, jersey, jacket, whatever you got
Oh,
on
just to
there.
pull over. Just to pull
Pull up,
over.
pull
Just to
over.
let them
Okay,
know. Just
okay.
to let them know.
And also Andy Yanez, freelancer but newly employed. Can you?
Mhm.
Can you? Are you allowed to say the employer yet?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
I signed last Thursday. Actually, I'm officially the newest reporter for Community Impact. Well, I guess I started on the 14th, but yeah, I had Chris. I had a crazy process where I actually had two offers on the table with with Houston Vibe. I interviewed with them and with Community Impact, and I chose Community Impact. So I'm gonna be doing a little bit different stuff for a little while. I won't be focusing too much on sports for now, but they gave me that option to freelance for sports, so I plan on still covering U of H events with Apollo, and maybe now and then high school sports too.
And also now and then he'll still be a part of these random pop-ups we do when we decide to talk some sports. So you're not done with us yet, Andy. Don't worry about that, man. So, okay, fellas. Well, for those who did not watch the three of us on KWK the lunch break talking about the playoffs, we kind of messed up on a lot of a lot of playoff series, man.
Woo.
Especially in the
So let's get right up,
West.
let's get right into it. All three of us were wrong with the Lakers,
Yeah.
but I think all three of us picked the Lakers to win it all too. So right,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
So yeah, we're wrong in a big way there. And I hope I told the folks there, and I tell everybody tuning in right now, do not spend your money on what I say when it comes to a prediction of a series. Please do not do that.
Do not.
I am not responsible for your money going out of your hands if you place a bet on what I say. None of that. But let's get into the series, the Lakers and the Suns. Andy, what went wrong for the Lakers?
Injuries, man. Obviously, you can't talk this series without Anthony Davis, and that was the big injury. I think it just really their whole season. That's kind of it. Never seemed like they were. I would say it never seemed like they had continuity from what I watched in the series. Obviously, they showed, I feel, flashes of what was the team last year, especially after they went up in that series against Phoenix, and you had LeBron feeling it, kind of taunting the Suns bench. I feel like that kind of motivated the Suns too, but they showed it in flashes. I just feel like they were never that team in terms of health. It didn't allow them to have that continuity that other championship teams would have in the past.
Will, do you think the Lakers hid how serious or severe LeBron's ankle injury was to the rest of us?
Oh, without question. Without question. And I think that's pretty much dictated by LeBron as well. And to Andy's point, injuries, before the injury started with AD early in the season, Lakers were 21-7, number two seed
Mhm.
in the West. And after the injury started, they finished 23-26. So they just never. And I think LeBron said it post game as well last night. They just never got a chance to get it going. They never got a flow. They never had that continuity. And I think that we got caught up in the brand of the Lakers because and they are a brand, no question. But I'm sorry, Phoenix was the number two seed, and
Yeah.
they're clearly they showed they were the number two seed for a reason, But healthy, yeah, I think that's a totally different series, and probably I don't go so far as saying this the seeds will be reversed, but that's definitely a different series. Health um, being in favor of the Lakers.
Yeah, I think we overestimated Lakers' health. We, personally, me, I really forgot about the grind of the season that they finished prior, in the bubble.
Hmm.
They
Mhm.
had they and the Heat. And go figure, the two teams in the finals last year both got really broomed, general sweep for the Lakers in the first round. They had the shortest amount of recovery time than any other team in the NBA. Lakers had injuries to AD, LeBron. Dennis Schroeder got COVID. KCP had knee injuries. And then he ended up, I think, Alex Caruso got injured. But in last night's game, they had injuries just throughout.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of teams deal with injuries this season. A lot of teams deal with injuries now. We can talk about pick a team in the playoffs.
Right.
Luka and the next strain, when he was less than Luka, the Clippers won twice. When he's been Luka, the Mavs have won 3 times. So if Luka is Luka tonight, who you got, Will?
Oh, I think it's 1, 2, 3 Cancun for playoff P. I really do. I think it's the Mavericks. I think if he's on, I think the Mavericks finish it out tonight.
Andy?
Yeah, I agree. And that series has been so weird with the road team winning each of the first 5 games. The way Luka played in Game 5, I have to pick the Mavericks. And I just feel like if the Mavericks don't win this game, it's bad news for them. I don't think they'll win 4 on the road. So,
but why? I mean, seriously, because so far we don't have a reason either way to believe one team or the other can win on their home court. So the Clippers wouldn't, playoff P. The Clippers' problem so far this series is one, they can't defend Luka, but who can? But 2, the rest of the team is not stepping up. Kawhi didn't play well in the last game. In Game 5, didn't shoot too well. But Paul George has played well, considering he's played better this series than he did in the bubble. I think his mind is in a better place now than last year in the bubble. But it wouldn't shock me if the Clippers won Game 6 tonight. And it would shock me if the Mavs won Game 7 in LA on Sunday. Because I can't figure out either one of these teams.
I will say this: the Clippers had the opportunity to take back Game 5 at the end, and they had like that fast break opportunity in the final seconds. And I can't remember who it was. Paul George passed in fast break, and they kind of messed up on the fast break, and from that point, so the Clippers did better in Game 5, and they had a chance. I just feel it'd be really weird if no home team can win in this series for me. So I feel like Dallas closes it out tonight, but if not,
well, as a Houstonian, different sport, but we've seen a series where the home team did not win a game in the 7-game series. Right. Yeah. But the Clippers in Game 5, they were doing well, and then the fourth quarter, they kept turning over the ball. Paul George losing it, folks passing away, folks dropping balls out of bounds. The Mavs they struggled to score in the fourth quarter for nearly 5-6 minutes. They kept waiting. They were allowing the Clippers. Okay, here you go. We're not making shots. Here you go. They're like handing you chances to do something, and the Clippers just failed to take over. And then Chris Stapps and Tim Hardaway Jr. hit those back-to-back threes to put them up 10, and that was a ball game. Well, if the Clippers can hold on to the ball, maybe they have a chance. But really, we have no idea which team is going to show up, because the Mavs is the pressure on the Mavs tonight or the Clippers? Who has more pressure?
I think it's the Clippers. I really do, because it's a closeout game. And anytime a team on the closeout game, the Mavericks know they can win the Staples Center. They know that. They're at home in the closeout game. The Clippers have to show up, in my opinion.
Andy?
Yeah, I'd have to say the pressure's on the Clippers, not regarding this series, but just in terms of their expectations in general. When they got Kawhi, Paul George, if they lose in the first round, I don't know what's going to happen with the Clippers' future. Kawhi Leonard has the option to opt out after the season. I mean, if they lose it tonight or they lose Game 7, that team is going to look really different, in my opinion. If Kawhi stays or not, you got to change it up.
Well, see, we can really go down the West teams who've been eliminated and discuss how to fix them. What are they going to do? Portland, he lost to the Nuggets in 6. What is Dame going to do? What should Dame do? If you were Damian Lillard's advisor, his pupil, should you tell him, man, you've given everything you can to this franchise and to this city. It's time to look out for number one and force a trade somewhere. Or you just say, give him a chance to improve the roster around you and wait one more year.
No, you're giving him a chance. I think if I'm Dame's advisors, we've done what we can do. And that extension kicks in this year. That 4 years, 176.
Right.
So that could be an issue. But you got to get out of there. I mean, CJ and Dame. I mean, Nurkic even last night was saying some out of the pocket stuff post game, like, yeah, I think this is it. And I'm like, Nurkic? I mean, that's the last person I would think that would, complaining per se. But if I'm Dame, I think it's time. I think the expiration date on that team has come, and it has to. I think he looks out for him and makes a move.
Andy, do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely agree, and it's a bit of a interesting issue. We talked about it. I feel like this roster needs to get shaken up, regardless of what they choose to do. Obviously, the contract might be an issue trying to move Damian Lillard. If I was in Damian Lillard's group, I'd get them to figure out a way to get into the Lakers if that's even possible.
I got it.
But yeah, whether he stays in Portland or he doesn't, they got to do something with that roster, shake it up. Obviously, this with the core of CJ McCollum, Damian Lillard, and whatever pieces you want around them, it kind of seems like they've hit their ceiling. And what was it? It was 2019 when they made the Western Conference Finals, correct?
Yeah.
I mean, that seems like the high point. That's the ceiling. I don't see them being able to pass that. And even that year, they had a lot of things break in their favor. So I don't know. I feel like changes need to happen. Certainly, if I was Portland, I'd figure out a way to retool with something different around Damian Lillard, kind of like the Rockets did after Dwight Howard left, and they kind of got a whole different team around him. But something has to change up there because they keep repeating and same result.
Is the change is changing the head coach enough of the change? Because I think Cherry Stotts is gone.
Yeah. I don't think so. I think it's got to be more than just a coach. It's just the roster. I don't feel like it's good enough to be on that level. And with the Lakers, obviously, they're in a bit of a situation. They're still going to have LeBron and AD. And whatever they decide to retool, I feel like they'll probably be a lot better next season. Whatever happens with Portland, if they keep this roster new coach, I still don't think they'll be good enough to compete with either of the top teams in the West.
But if the Lakers rely on AD being healthy for 70 out of 82 next year in the playoffs.
I agree with Barkley. Barkley said it last night, and it's true. They have to sit him down and look, what's your offseason regimen? Who are you working with? What have you done? Because it's habitual. It's habitual with him. Every year there's some type of injury. Knick-knack, ticky-tack, ankle, knee, concussion. It's something. Hyperextended knee, which led to the groin strain. Something. Talk to Mike Mancias. I mean, he technically works for the Lakers, but we know he's LeBron's guy. Work with him. I mean, LeBron is going into year 19 with no serious injury.
Right. The high ankle was the first time in his career, really.
Right. So you have access to pretty much the fountain of youth, if you will, to phrase it that way. Why not take advantage of it? He has to do something. I don't know what he's done previous years off season, but he has to do something. And if he does, and if he's willing to make those changes, then I think they can count on him next year, at least 70 of 82.
But I'll play devil's advocate, Will.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe he has, but what if AD has done all the right things? And he just bad luck. Chris Paul has done the right things.
Yeah.
He changed his diet and his regimen,
Yeah.
and he's still getting bad luck injuries. So
You're
what
right.
if it's that's the case?
Then you got to revamp that. As with Portland, you got to revamp that roster. And I have to trade money wise. Now throw some picks in there, what have you. But if you trade Kuzma, you trade KCP, and you re-sign Dennis Schroeder to that $84 million that I know he now wishes he didn't turn down. That money matches
Wow.
Dame's salary.
Okay. So you're
Yeah,
saying
to get Dame.
okay. Because I was going to say I wouldn't give Dennis that money because he ain't worth it to me.
No.
Yeah, okay, I got you. Okay.
Yeah, just to make the money work.
Okay.
KCP, Kuzma, sign Schroeder to the extension, throw him in there, make the money work for Dame. And throw a pick or two if you need to. That's fine. And get Dame and a big three of Dame, LeBron, and AD. It does three things. One, it takes LeBron off the ball. LeBron has to be off the ball. It's in year 19.
Right.
In spells, short spurts, yeah. He cannot. He no longer can be the primary ball handler. He just can't. Two, you have that buffer if AD were to go down. Dame and LeBron can kind of weather the storm. And that's what happened this year. AD went down. LeBron can only do so much with Kuzma, Marc Gasol, KCP, Andre Drummond. Right. He can only do so much. And then three, it allows Dame to take a step back. He's no longer the primary guy. He can be that night in, night out, and it's been proven, but he no longer has to carry that weight, the brunt of everything. Because 9 times out of 10, we know it's going to go through LeBron. And regardless of what happens, as we've seen today, everything is going to be, well, LeBron did this, LeBron didn't do that. So I think it works for everybody.
What if, Andy, this is for you, what would it take? Would it take Dame pulling a James Harden and forcing his way out, doing things that you think he shouldn't be doing, and going to Portland management? Just saying what James said, the talent is not good enough. We're not good enough. And I want to be traded. This is my list of teams. And the Lakers is on that list. Is that what it's going to take?
If he's trying to get to Los Angeles, I think that's what's going to take. And when you mentioned Dennis Schroeder, I think another piece that'll be interesting is Montrezl Harrell. I'm not sure, is he a free agent this offseason, or if not, he was not a fit with this Lakers team at all.
I think he's got a player option that we'd have to look at, because I know it was like a 2-year deal. So
yeah, he has a player option.
And that baffles me. When I flipped to it, I guess game 2 of the series, and I saw Trez had, I thought, a soft cast, something on his right hand. I thought that was the reason why he wasn't playing. That's what I was like, because other than injury, he should have been playing. Energy he provides. He's better on defense. He's quicker. He's got a higher basketball IQ, I think, than Drummond. Andre Drummond, he had this label in college, but I saw when he was with the Pistons, he just doesn't get it. His basketball IQ is just not there. He's had problems with quality big men throughout his NBA career. If it's a quality big man going up against him, his numbers just aren't as good as they are against also ran big men. But then too many times in this series, in his time with the Lakers on defense, what are you doing, man? Who are you guarding? Are you part of the rotation? And it was so bad that Frank Vogel just said, enough, game, Marc Gasol, you're going to start. And Marc Gasol is well past his prime. But why didn't he play Trez 4 minutes? It didn't make any sense. Game 6. It didn't make any sense. So if I'm Trez, he's not going to stay in LA. So the Lakers will be out without Gasol, without Drummond, without Trez. That's a good thing. They need to find big men that fit their scheme and style of play. Schroeder, other than sign and trade, and we'd have to have a capologist on to discuss what deal can be made in any situation that could be a sign and still be part of a trade, because some rules have changed where you can't do that. Be it extending deal can't no longer happen. There's got to be involved with cap room or things like that. But will it take for the Lakers, LeBron saying, "I want Damian Lillard"? Is that what it's going to have to take for LeBron to go to Jenny Buss and say, "I want Dame"?
Oh, without question. That's already. I read earlier, right before we came on, that Rob Pelinka said, "Oh, for sure, Vogel, AD, and LeBron will be involved in roster decisions this offseason."
Mm-hmm.
So, absolutely, I'm quite sure that conversation will be had. If it has not already been had, that look, Dame's ready. Dame wants to come. It's been funny. You see the memes, Bron texting Steph. Nah, it's gonna be Dame. It's gonna be Dame.
Well, should it be Steph?
Nah, because he has to wait another year for Steph. Steph's not a free agent until next year. I don't know that a trade exists, and I don't know that Golden State will trade Steph. I don't know that they would.
Okay, but would Portland trade Dame? His fat contract extension is about to begin. So would they trade Dame, especially to the Lakers?
Yeah, I think going back to I didn't mean to cut you off, but going back to what you said,
that's you.
What you meant or what you said back then, I think it's gonna have to take Damian Lillard to have to play that James Harden card, and it's weird. It's weird to see or hard to see him use that, just in terms of how kind of he's made a big deal, how loyalty is a big deal for him. See him kind of make 180 and start behaving like Harden did to get out, but I think that's what's gonna have to take, and for a trade to work, it probably looks similar to that James Harden trade, where you're gonna have to include a lot of pick swaps and picks for Portland to consider it, and that's what makes it different. Since that extension is kicking in, maybe another team out there takes a chance. They put their package together, do it with Portland. They have a long-term security. They don't have to worry about trading assets for Harden. I believe it would have been like a 2-year rental if a team had traded for him. So it's a different situation, and I mean, the Lakers can put their package together, but it ultimately depends on Portland and what other teams offer too.
Because the Heat really don't have the first round picks going forward to put in a package for Dame. And if I'm Portland, see, if you're the team with the superstar, obviously you want to get a superstar caliber player in return, but most likely you're going to have to settle for getting, hopefully, 75 cents on the dollar. But if I'm Portland talking to the Heat, I want Bam Adebayo.
Oh, sure.
Period. If Miami says no, hang up the phone. I don't want Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero. No, none of that. I want Bam Adebayo.
Player.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, a player that'll make this interesting, and going back to the Clippers, if they lose either Game 6 or Game 7, they're out in the first round, and Kawhi Leonard opts out. What if he decides to switch locker rooms, get over to the Lakers, or if he goes to Miami, or what if New York? What if he goes to the Knicks after their season?
And see, Kawhi holds. That's a great call, but he has a player option. I'm not sure. I don't believe there's only a handful of teams, especially good teams, that will have the cap room to throw a lot of money at Kawhi. Mm-hmm. Lakers ain't one of them.
Yeah, for sure.
So if he wants to go across the hall, he'll have to take a pay cut. Like the mid-level for $10 million, whatever it's like, roughly $10 million. Right. I don't see Kawhi doing that. He probably should if he wants a chance at a ring with the Lakers, like that scenario. But Kawhi should, use his leverage. The Knicks, I think, with all their free agents and the guys who have the 1-year deals, they may have cap room. Kawhi in New York, Kawhi and Julius Randle, I'm not sure how that would work, but it would be up to Coach Tibbs to make it work. I mean, Kawhi's a small forward. Julius is more of a power forward, so it's not really the same position. But it's not going to be a boring off season. I'm curious to see what Dame does, and getting back to Harden and his way he left before he went rogue. James was loyal to Houston.
Yeah.
Houston thought James would never leave, and James would never be that guy to force his way out. But James forced his way out. So Portland would think the same thing. City of Portland, Dame would never leave us. Dame would never be that guy. Dame would never go rogue. If Dame realizes, what if Dame just goes the way I think James should have and kept it private? Go to the front office, Blazers front office. We've had a great run here. It's just not going to work here. I want a chance at winning a championship, a legit chance at winning a championship. So let's work together and let's try to get a deal that's best for both of us. Do it that way. Instead of going to the strip clubs and just, going public with, we ain't good enough and all those kind of things, that route. But something should happen. Let's shift to the East. I'm concerned about my pick with Philly.
Yeah.
My concern is, I think, should be obvious to y'all and anybody tuning in. Joel Embiid's health. If big man is healthy, which he ain't, and he has a slight meniscus tear?
Right.
You know what it's termed? That's not day to day. Okay, that's not a day-to-day recovery.
It's not. Like a strained groin isn't a 4-day recovery.
Yeah, so
but
with Joel and a slight meniscus tear, do the Sixers have enough without him to beat the Hawks in a 7-game series? 4 times. They got to do it 4 times. I'll throw it out like this. If Joel only is healthy for 3 of the 7 games, could the Sixers, do they have enough to win 1 of those remaining 4 without Embiid?
I'll go first. I feel like they should have enough to beat Philly. I mean, Philly should have enough to beat Atlanta. If Joel Embiid's not healthy, I feel that it would be a 7-game series going all the way to 7. But, something about this injury, I'm not sure what's the chances are that he could aggravate it and make it a full meniscus tear. That's something else that could be in consideration. Maybe Philly holds them out for the first 2 games, see how they match up with them, and go from there. But that sounds scary. A slight meniscus tear. I mean, how far away is he from a full meniscus tear? I believe, what's the timetable for that? Like a month? Over a month?
It's weeks.
Yeah.
Depending on severity of the tear, I mean, we're not doctors, obviously, but it's not day to day.
Yeah.
I feel certain of that. It is not day to day like Philly put out there. Okay. Let's say I do agree with you about Philly holding him out game 1. I'm not sure about first 2 games, but I think rest as much as possible. Game 1 is Sunday at noon on ABC Central Time. See what you got. See what Ben Simmons can do, because Ben Simmons 6'10". Ben Simmons, this is over your head, Andy, in terms of because of your youth and your age. But Will, Ben Simmons looked like Magic Johnson.
Yeah.
Way back when in Game 6 against Philly, ironically, in the finals in 80.
Right.
Running the point, being point center. And the Sixers offense, they had enough around him. They look good. Now, obviously, the Wizards defense is not the Hawks defense at all. But at least for a game 1, if Joel isn't good to go, sit him, big man, let's take one more day. Let's get close to a week to recover and see how you do and see how Philly does in game 1.
I'm conflicted because I hate this for Doc Rivers, because as much as I celebrate him for the Clippers struggles, and I know he's laughing somewhere in Philly right now, like, and when
It
Dell
wasn't me.
did,
Yeah, it wasn't
him.
me.
I thought it was me. Thought it
Yeah.
was me. Yeah. See, now what? How you like me now? On this hand, it's like, man, if Joel Embiid does not play, and you know what? I have a lot of confidence in Dwight Howard. Now, by no means at this point, probably year 17, I think for Dwight, is he equivalent to Joel Embiid? No. But I think he can still hold his own. A matter of fact, honestly, the Lakers probably should have done a little bit more to keep him versus letting him go, and the way they did to go to Philly. But I digress. But Atlanta, man, Trae Young, that team, Nate McMillan, if there should be no question right now if is he going to get that job. There should be no question at all. He has to become the full-time coach.
What's the
And,
holdup?
right, that's exactly. I don't understand. Like, am I missing something? Did I miss a press release? Did they announce him as full-time coach yet, and I missed it? But there's no reason not to. No reason not to. That being said, I think Dwight Howard in a short-term capacity can do it. I know Clint Capella is very familiar to you guys down there in Houston, but I think Philly has enough. Tobias Harris has to step his game up. He did it a couple games against Washington, but Tobias Harris, if Embiid is going to be out extended time, Tobias Harris has to come to play. But I think they can do it. I think they can do it. Just that youth and experience in Atlanta. I thought it'd bite them a little bit against New York. It didn't, because New York was equally green when it comes to playoffs. But Doc Rivers, Dwight Howard, Ben Simmons, George Hill. That's an underrated trade that they made at the trade deadline. George Hill coming to Philly. That can pay huge dividends. And I think even without Embiid, Philly has enough to get it done.
Well, you're forgetting Seth Curry, too.
Seth Curry. Exactly.
Andy, what about you? Does Philly have enough without Joel Embiid?
I think to get past the Hawks, I think they do have enough. Like I said, I feel if Embiid isn't healthy, you probably see it a 6-7 game series. I'd give Philly the edge just in terms of the entire season they've had. And, like you mentioned, I feel like Dwight Howard, he's good enough to fit in for this series. And Clint Capella, he's not necessarily going to blow you away in terms of offensive numbers or anything like that. But I feel like Dwight Howard's a good piece to match up against the Hawks. After the series, without Embiid, regardless if it's Milwaukee or Brooklyn, they won't have enough to get past that.
Yeah, I think we agree on that. Yeah. Joel's he's got to get healthy. If he's not healthy, Philly's chances against either the Bucks or the Nets are slim. But let's get to it. It is the series in these conference finals. Brooklyn, Milwaukee. Break it down, Andy. I like, clearly the Nets' big three is a Hall of Fame big three. But the Bucks' three's not too shabby. Mm-hmm. So, Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, and Yanez. I wish the Pistons had a three like that. The Pistons had one of those three and traded him away for trash. But I digress about Chris Middleton. I'm still bitter about that, if you can't tell. But what say you, Andy?
Well, before, when we did our initial predictions, I did have Brooklyn going over Milwaukee, and I still do. I'll tell you what, after seeing Milwaukee and how after the first game they were a little shaky against Miami, and then they figured it out for the rest of the series and just blew past the Heat. They're making my pick a little more shaky. I feel they match up well in terms of big three. Drew Holiday, Kyrie, Chris Middleton, and James Harden, and that acquisition of PJ Tucker is going to be huge and rotating in either of the players of the big three that the Nets have, and obviously Giannis and KD. I think where the Nets probably have the advantage is the depth that they have. Joe Harris and all the other players, Blake Griffin. That's where I feel Brooklyn will probably. That's where they have the advantage and could use that. And in 7-game series, it'll probably help them win a game or two if the big three, kind of cancel each other out. But let me tell you, what Milwaukee did to Miami has me a little rethinking my pick. I'll stick with Brooklyn in 7.
Who I see his face. Who is help me out here? The Bucks big man they got played at Chicago and years ago punched a teammate. Who am I thinking of?
The
Coming off
Bucks
the
big
bench.
man.
He comes off the bench. I'll get it in a second.
Yeah.
Because I like him, Andy. I don't know what Blake has left. I know Blake is revitalized with the Nets and all that, but I'm not sure. And I can see his face plain as day. And when I say his name, y'all will be like, "Oh yeah." But I like him. 6'10", versatile. He's played well, this season. I really do think that the Bucks.
Oh, Bobby Portis.
Bobby Portis.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bobby
There you go.
Portis.
Bobby Portis. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's gonna play well in this series.
Yes.
Because he's gonna have to give Yanez a rest. Pat Connaughton needs to step up without Dante DiVincenzo, with him being out with the foot injury. Bryn Forbes. Bryn Forbes shooting the ball lights out. So they got a good bench. Brook Lopez just needs to be solid and consistent.
Right.
Because we know, everybody knows the Nets big three lights out scores. Lights out.
Yeah.
Defense on the Nets is the big question. If Joe Harris is not left open, can Joe Harris hurt you?
No.
So if it comes down to if Drew can keep Kyrie, if Drew, Kris, and Yanez can defend the Nets big three one-on-one, which is a huge task, but if they can do it enough where it's just those three, and you don't get Joe Harris involved, don't get anybody else involved, and I think Jeff Green is going to be out game 1 because of an injury.
Yeah.
So that's going to ding the Nets' depth. Blake Griffin, if Blake is at the 5, I'm good with that if I'm the Bucks. I'm not going to worry about him. I'm not going to double team him in the post. I'm not going, okay, Blake, do what you can do. Do what you think you still can do.
Right.
But I'm not sending a double team at you. I'm going to stick with Joe Harris and everybody else. And I'm going to make, if I put in position, I'm going to make Blake Griffin beat me if I'm Milwaukee. And a key is transition defense. Speaking of transition defense, we were all wrong about Memphis.
Oh.
But Memphis, they're young, and their youth finally showed up in games 2 through 5 against Utah. But Memphis's defense and their transition defense, their pick and roll defense was abysmal. Abysmal. Yeah. And part of that is to the Jazz credit. Utah, let me ask you this. I said this on the lunch break, I think last Thursday with AJ. I want to get your take on this. I believe that a well-run pick and roll cannot be stopped. If you got the right personnel, space the floor, and you got a great ball handler who can make great decisions, a well-run pick and roll cannot be stopped. You're gonna allow the ball handler to penetrate. If you double team, kick out of it. If you got shooters around the perimeter, but what are you gonna do if you don't double team? If my man setting the pick can make the outside shot, face up shot, pick and pop 3, whatever. If y'all double me, I'm kicking to my man just at the pick. If he can make the shot on a high percentage, what are you going to do? Memphis chose the complete opposite route. They did nothing. They didn't hedge. They didn't show long enough. They didn't double. Mike Conley. They didn't double Donovan Mitchell. The rotations were awful. Their transition defense, they allowed Utah to beat them down the floor after made buckets, after missed buckets, out of timeouts, loose balls. It looked like Utah had 8 players.
Yeah.
They were open, wide open so much. That really bothered me. But if the Mavs beat the Clippers, the Mavs can't stop Utah. The Mavs defense is not that great.
Yeah.
At least the Clippers have PG and Kawhi to do a little better, but they also have Reggie Jackson, who can't defend pick and roll. Pat Bev is a shell of himself.
Pat Bev out there tricking people.
That is the classic Russ, classic Russ video right there, man. It's timeless.
Yes, sir.
But what do you think about what I'm suggesting about a well-run pick and roll cannot be defended?
You won it. I was sitting here as you spoke it, as you kept saying, and I'm sitting here and I'm planning. I'm like, you know what? I can't disagree with you at all. I see what you're saying, and I agree. I agree. Spacing is key. But as you said, if you have that pick and pop guy that can roll off the pick and hit that shot, like, what is there to do? And the decision maker at point guard. Talked about Magic earlier. That you're right. I don't see a stoppage to any of the scenarios that you brought to the table.
Andy?
Yeah, Chris, we kind of talked about it a little bit last night when Denver and Portland, that game, Denver kind of does a good job of the same thing with the pick and roll with Jokic. That kind of puts teams at a disadvantage because Jokic can do everything. He can pass, he can shoot. And really, how do you guard that? If you defend the roller, I mean, you got the guard, like you mentioned, he's got either has the lane to attack the basket or kicks it out to one of the shooters. If you double team, like you said, off the screen, Jokic can pick and pop. Or he can also drive, he can create. I mean, with teams like that, they have it all figured out. And that's something you going back to the Lakers, they struggled on offense just to have something like that. You know, they were trying to force feed LeBron the ball in terms of, I remember this one possession where they're trying to give it to him in the post, and Crowder was just doing a fantastic job denying the ball. And you saw the spacing, how different it is when you look at the Lakers just in Game 6 and how difficult everything was for them on offense. Compare that to the Nuggets and how good there is just in terms of how the personnel they have, and Jokic can do everything for them. You see the difference, and I agree. If you have the personnel and you have the execution, it's really hard to stop. Yeah.
Now, because I'm not hating on Monty Morris, but we would not consider him an elite point guard. Okay? Mm-hmm. But a Monty Morris, Jokic pick and roll ate up Portland. And one key to at least defending or doing a solid job against a pick and roll is you have to be on the same page. You got to be on a string. You got to know, okay, are we going to double the ball handler? Are we going to head? Are we going to show on this pick? How long am I going to show? Am I going to allow you to come back to the ball handler? Because if the defense is not on the same page and everybody's stuck in no man's land, like Memphis was, like the Blazers were, I mean, they were on the same page down the stretch when Jokic strolled to the hoop for a layup off a high pick and roll. You can't allow that.
Yeah.
The best player on the floor get a layup off a hot pick and roll at the top of the key. Robert Covington, he wasn't sure, okay, should I stick with Monty Morris? You need to know. It's not, well, okay, I'm going to be stuck here because I think my teammate's going to be, he's got my back. You got to know what you're going to do.
Yeah.
So defense is key there. Okay. Nuggets Suns. Who you got? Keeping in mind, we had the Suns losing in the first round to the Lakers. So,
right.
So,
that part. Oh, man. I'll say
I'm
it.
gonna.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Sam. Go ahead.
I'm a go. I'm a completely ignore what we said the first time. I think Phoenix edges out Denver, and I like I mentioned before, I think this will be another 7-game series. Just what I saw in Game 6, and well, Chris Paul has to be healthy. If that shoulder is still bothering him or re-aggravates it or something like that, Denver has the advantage. I feel like what I saw when the Lakers kind of made that late rally, they got it within 10, and then Chris Paul was just, and I think Kevin Harlan mentioned in the broadcast, just that calming presence that he had for Phoenix, and he kind of settled everything down and kind of gave Phoenix, relax, and they were able to build back the lead up to like 15 or 17. I think that's where Phoenix has the edge. When it comes to skill, right now, I feel like they're evenly matched, especially since Denver's without Jamal Murray. And I feel bad for Denver. If they had a full healthy squad, they'd probably be favorites to go to the NBA Finals right now. But yeah, I'm a lean Phoenix in 7.
Well,
You know what? I was with you, Andy. I was wanted to say Phoenix, and then I thought about first quarter, Game 6, Michael Porter Jr.
Yeah.
If that man shows up, I think it's Denver. I think it's Denver because it's like the light bulb clicked for that kid, and now he's starting to get it. The
but
game is slowing down. What's that?
Second
Will, what did he do the rest of the game?
No, you're right. That's why I said first quarter,
Yeah.
Game 6. You're right. That's why I'm like, oh.
I mean, because he had 22 in the first quarter.
And he ended with 26, I think.
Something
28?
like that,
Yeah. Man. Because I'm looking at Ayton and Joker. That's the matchup I'm looking at. Like, man, Joker is going to run him through, but then Ayton is going to do his thing as well.
But what if Ayton gets in foul trouble? Because I think he will a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Nurkic fouled out of what? 4 of those games? 4 to 6? He fouled out? Yeah. Oh, man. All right. And see, that's what I mean. So I'm like, the role players, Torrey Craig for Phoenix. I'll do it. I'll say it. I'll do it. Phoenix. Chris Paul. CP3. The common effect of Chris Paul.
But we saw when he fell, was it in the second quarter last night?
Right.
That shoulder's still bothering him.
It is. Without question. And
then you haven't even mentioned Devin Booker.
I haven't. And that's what I mean. I'm looking at role players. The stars are going to be stars. They're going to do what they're going to do. I'm looking at the role players: the Monty Morris,
Austin Rivers,
Torrey Craig,
Cameron Payne.
You know what?
Cameron Payne.
Austin Rivers. He was huge for Denver.
He was, but you know what's bad? Cameron Payne. No, this is probably bad, but I can't get past Cameron Payne. When I think of Cameron Payne, I think of him dancing with Russ in OKC. I can't get past it. I can't. Like, I got a friend of mine, to this day, 3-time champion. He calls Danny Green Dancing Danny Green for his time in Cleveland. Dancing Danny Green. I mean, but to this day, Cameron Payne is the kid dancing with Russ pregame in OKC to me. Yeah. So, yeah, Phoenix, that veteran leadership, and I said, going back to the Lakers a little bit. Everyone talks about LeBron and Monty Williams out coach Vogel, and he did. But let's go up top. James Jones out GM'd.
Oh yes,
Rob Pelinka. Let's give that man his flowers. That man, James Jones, is underrated as a GM, and he did his thing. Clearly, 1 through 15, Phoenix is Trump tight. I think, yeah, they're gonna be Denver.
And many of us, when he got the job, questioned the hire.
Without question.
James Jones, what?
Yeah.
Who? The James Jones who did really? Oh, but he's proven his worth.
Yeah.
I hate being. I'm sorry, Nuggets fans. No, Nuggets fans. You should be glad what I'm about to say, because all three of us clearly don't know what we're talking about. based on the first round pick of the
Right.
Lakers, I'm picking Phoenix.
Yeah.
Obviously, Chris Paul needs to be healthy enough to play 5, 6, 7 games in this series.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm picking Phoenix. Utah, does it matter who Utah gets in the second round? Clippers or Mavericks?
No. To me, no.
I think it matters in terms of length. I think if Dallas wins, like you said, Chris, I think Utah have a more favorable matchup just in terms of what they can do offensively and how not as strong Dallas is defensively. I'll say this: if the Clippers can win 2 in a row and advance, I think that'll get them in the right direction. It'll kind of get them over whatever's bothering them in terms of not being able to perform in the playoffs, and I guess they'll have experience under the belt that they can perform under pressure. It's not going to get any more pressure as what they're facing right now. I think if it's Utah, Dallas, I'd probably say Utah in 6. Just in terms of how good Luka Doncic is, probably going to have a couple of games where he's like he did in Game 5, where he just can't miss, or at least at the beginning he can't miss, and he's making plays and he's doing these crazy stuff. If it's Utah and LA, Kawhi and Paul George, they're like you mentioned, they're much better defenders. It'll probably be those type of grinded out games where it's struggle. I still give Utah the edge just in terms of what they've done it the whole season, and we obviously a lot of people right now aren't sold on Utah just in terms of the past few years where they haven't necessarily had that deep run. But I guess in terms of winning, I guess it won't matter. I got Utah in which either of the two, but I could see the Clippers being a tougher matchup, especially if they end up, in order for them to advance, they have to win 2 in a row.
Well, that's logic. On paper, the Clippers are a better matchup for Utah than Dallas. But on paper, we thought the Clippers would handle Dallas better than what they're doing. Yeah. I don't know what the Clippers are going to do. If the Clippers lose in this first round, what should the Clippers do in the offseason?
Well, number one, bring Ty Lue back. That I don't want to hear it's Ty Lue's fault, because whose fault was it last year? So, man. I mean, what can you do? I mean, you have no first round picks till 2027, thanks to playoff P. I say that so very facetiously.
Oh yes, we can tell. Oh yeah.
What do you do? Man, that's a great. Andy,
come on, Will. No, the first thing you do is convince Kawhi to stay.
Oh, you got to stay.
Yeah. That's the first thing. Saying. Come on, yeah.
That goes without saying. I know, but see, here's why I pause with that. Here's why I struggle. I don't know that they can. I think Kawhi's out of there. I really, really do. I think he's out of there.
But why? I mean, I asked because he said he chose Clippers because it was home. Close to home, and he wanted to be around his family and stuff. Okay. So he's gonna leave home because they didn't get it done?
Yeah, I mean, Kawhi's, think about his career. He's used to winning. He doesn't have to be the man. He clearly wasn't the man in San Antonio. He was fine being a part of that ensemble. Manu, Tony Parker. To me, he was cool. He went to Toronto. Siakam, Lowry. So he goes to LA, and now he's expected to be the man. And it just didn't work. Playoff P wants to be the man, but it's clear that they expect Kawhi to do that. And it's just not working. He wanted it, but I went to dinner and I ordered a meal, and I'm like, I want it, but then I'm like, I don't think I like this. I don't like this now. So I'm going to go ahead and sit in this bag. I think he wanted to go home. It's not working. And I think he's out.
Okay. But how out is he? Is he out to consider taking the mid-level for a championship caliber team?
No.
Or is he out saying, no. I want 25. I want the max for whatever team that is.
I'm out, and I'm finding Jimmy Butler in Cabo somewhere.
Okay.
We're gonna have Banana Boat, and we just gonna chill. And Jimmy, what can we do? What can we do? It's Miami. I mean, Pat Riley will make it happen.
He's going to try. But again, they don't have picks.
No, but that's what I'm saying. But Kawhi opts out. They can sign him outright. They only have what? They only have 4 players in the contract.
Yeah, they have cap room.
Yeah.
They'll be the rest of the players of the team will be the vet minimums.
Yeah,
kind
Shane
of thing.
Battier. He's done it. Pat Riley's done it before. Shane Battier.
Does Kawhi and Jimmy Butler and Bam bring the Heat back to the elite level?
Andy, I'll wait.
I don't think it's a guarantee, and I think with Kawhi is going to do what Kawhi wants to do. When he left Toronto after they won an NBA championship for the Clippers, I don't think there's much you can do. If he wants to leave, you're not going to convince him to stay, and if he wants to stay, good. There's your first piece. I think if they lose in the first round, or regardless, if they lose in the second round, that's obviously not the expectations they had. You got to move Paul George, but then what do you break it down? And I mean, they're in a tough position, and maybe if they lose, it's not so bad that if Kawhi decides to leave, just in terms of they kind of seem stuck with terms of how can you improve, because obviously teams aren't going to give you huge packages, or I mean, what if they reach out to Portland and try to figure out something? Not Damian Lillard, but what if CJ McCollum for Paul George or something like that? A package around those two. Is that a lateral move for both teams? Maybe Paul George and CJ just need to change the scenery. What say you? What say y'all with that?
Well, you got to throw on some more to make the money work. For the Clippers in return, because Paul George, his deal's about to kick in bigly. I mean, it's going to be, like I said, this offseason is not going to be boring. There's not a lot of huge big name free agents like next summer is shaping up to be, but it won't be dull, because we're going to see if superstars are going to use leverage to force/ask their way out of their current situation. Will, before we wrap it up, Andy and I talked about this already because it involves Houston team.
Mm-hmm.
The NBA Tuesday released its list of early entry candidates for the 2021 NBA draft.
Okay.
353 players are on the list, Will.
And a 60-player draft, right?
Correct. Yes, sir. And I think, what was it? Maybe 59 of them were international, if that. So 290 or so, or whatever. Let me pull it up and see. Were college or institutional academic academy kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that? I think you kind of touched on it right there. 60 picked up.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, far be it from me to try to squelch anybody's dream. That's not the goal. That's not my intent. However, who told 259 of these guys, you know what? You need to go ahead and declare for the draft. You got it.
It was 296 from college and 57 international.
That's amazing. Amazing.
Now, this number is high because, one, the college NCAA gave everybody an additional year.
Mm-hmm.
So the seniors could have decided to go back to school for that extra year. So they had to tell the NBA that they were in the draft, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But still, I'll tell you the story and we can wrap it up. This didn't apply this year. But years ago, Andy, how old are you?
21.
Probably about 20 years ago or so. Yeah, no, even longer, maybe 25 years ago, because it was early years of the Houston Roundball review. The league sent out the list of candidates, early entry candidates, and me and my co-owner, Brian Watson, went down the list. I don't remember the young man's name, but the school listed was some school. It was like Pittsburgh Union, so it was like Division II, Division III, NAIA, whatever. We did some research, made some calls. The young man had not been at that school in a year. His last basketball was like YMCA level. I mean, it was that equivalent. So you can put your name, Andy, if you wanted to, man. You can probably put your name in the hat to declare if you have some eligibility. That's really where it is. In some cases, that you could do that. If you want out, you could declare for the draft. And I want to say one year, a kid was like in high school. I mean,
yeah,
because there was a point where the NBA really they did less research and background checks than they do now. So they had to avoid those kind of things, those kind of publicity stunts.
Right.
All right, we're going to close it out because getting time for Clippers and Mavs. Guys, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you for the folks who did tune in. We're going to do this again. We're going to try to do it each round of the playoffs, talk it up and just chop it up and add our thoughts. And maybe we'll be right, do better in the semifinal predictions than we did in the first round of predictions.
Hopefully.
We can't do much worse. So clearly on that. But Will, how can folks got it going across the screen? How can folks interact with you if they want to on social media?
I appreciate the opportunity, Kris. Will Gibson 7 on Twitter as well as Instagram. Will Knows. Will Knows Facebook page.
So you got it. So have you started the Will Knows podcast yet?
I have not. It's forthcoming, but the Facebook page is active.
Okay. And Andy Yanez, how can folks find you?
They can follow me on Twitter at @Yanez_5, and also be sure to follow the podcast Pod Slam and Jamma, covering the University of Houston, both men's and women's basketball. We recently, actually on Thursday, so yesterday, a new episode came out. We interviewed Ty Dillard, the University of Houston women's basketball team assistant coach. It was a good interview. I think, honestly, it might have been like 50 minutes. She talked about the COVID season, the struggles of that, and the recent additions and the new goals for the team. And keep building over there with Ron Huey. So be sure to check that out. Potsdam and Jam on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and I believe Stitcher, and really all the podcast platforms they are. And like I said, on Twitter at @Yanez_5.
Good job getting Coach Dillard on. She was kind enough to join me when I was guest hosting on the lunch break on KYLK. I'm going to toss it out there publicly. I'm not sure how many people are tuned in right now, but Coach Ron Huey, where you at? be on my show.
Be on our show too.
Jamma. Where you at? Yes, good. I'm not throwing shade on Ty because it's great to get her insight as well. But Coach Ron Huey, you're the head coach. Where you at? So discuss and promote your team and your squad. The platforms exist. Possum Jamma Outlet, Houston Roundball Review. That's 2 I know of. And 2 I think you know of too, Coach Huey, to promote your program. So participate. Return phone calls. I could go on and on about certain things, but I digress. I think I made my point clear. I'm Kris Gardner of the Houston Roundball Review. This week, I stepped out of my U of H function to the chagrin of some folks probably by interviewing some Rice Owls basketball players, but I'm Houston Roundball Review, local name, national perspective. So I talk hoops with whoever. So I shout out to Quincy Oliveri and Travis Evie, guards for the Rice Owls. Interviews available on podcast platforms as well as on my YouTube channel, Houston Roundball Review. And today I interviewed Kelly Ika from The Athletic, Houston Rockets beat writer. That's also on the podcast platforms as well as Houston Roundball Review's YouTube channel. Content. All 3 of us do things, talk sports, talk basketball. We do it. Follow us, communicate with us, keep in touch with us. We'll be back doing this again. I'm not sure if it'll be next Friday, but we'll get together and I'll put it out on the platforms to let you know. But thank you for tuning in. Hope you like it. We'll be back soon. Everyone take care.
Thank
Will,
you.
Andy, y'all be
Appreciate it.
safe and keep in touch. Thanks very
You as
much.
well, sir. Thank you.